Yes, you're gonna have people turn their backs, but it's time for us to keep it real. Just keep talking that real, bro. Do what you do. I know what you do, so keep doing that. Talk the real.
The HBI lads will see you now. See you now. See you now.
I don't want to cause no problems. I just want to live my life, but I keep on hearing about nonsense.
You're always going to be flexing, just like the HBI podcast. And we are back. Segway City, love it. So today we're talking about possibly the most important topic of all time. Not really, but also it is important. And that's professional development. That's right. It's a PD episode. Don't turn off now. But in all seriousness, PD is a really important part of, I was going to say professional development, that would have been obvious, but of your career pathway. But I think what we want to have a chat today about is really how to include PD and what to look for, and then how to actually, there's learning and then there's using, right? Which I think is one of the common mistakes people make, because I believe for all of our professions, there's a requirement for registration, right? We have X number of hours of PD I have to do each year in order to maintain registration. I would believe that's the same for everybody else. So there is that tendency at times, and I see it every year in our chiro groups, and I'm sure it's the same across everyone, where it's like 2 days out and someone's like, shit, how can I get 30 hours of PD in the next 2 days? Who's got what going, right? And that person's just like, they are paying zero attention. They're just getting it done. Yeah.
Just panic station.
So what is, let's talk PD. I'm going to let, Dan's going to run this one off. I've just decided. Talk PD, and then let's talk, how do we, what should we be looking for when it comes to PD?
The way I've looked at it has always been find someone doing the thing you want to be doing, or find your point B, figure out what your point A is, and then choose a course to try and plug the gap between those two things. So I've been a little bit more aligned with it rather than just doing everything and anything, which I've definitely been guilty of when I first came out. I think it's good because you want to kind of have a broad overview of what's out there. So it's kind of hard to decide what's the thing you want to choose if you don't know what's actually out there. It's kind of like going to an all-you-can-eat cafe, all-you-can-eat buffet, and then choosing one meal and sticking with it the whole night. You want to try a little bit of everything, but then you want to try and figure out what the thing you really want to get good at is, and then start to direct all your courses, all your PD towards that. So I think the biggest issue I see mentoring is a lot of guys going, they do my course and they're also doing a nutrition course. They're also doing NLP and something else. And it's if it's too much information, you're not really absorbing it. And there's a difference between information and implementation. Versus, I think it's better off to go like what I've done. I spent literally the last 4 or 5 years purely doing a shit ton of courses, but they've all been somehow related to anatomy, biomechanics, programming, rehab, performance. And it's until I get really, really good at that and think you're never going to be the best, but until you get to that level, it's you shouldn't really move on to something else because you're just conflicting your brain with multiple things and you're not actually learning anything really well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that good point to start with. Have your destination or your sort of option B or your destination B, and then start from your current standpoint where you're at the moment and think, all right, well, what skills do I lack in order to get to that destination that I need to be at? So if you want to go down the road of, I don't know, sports physiotherapy, and you want to go and work with a professional AFL team or something like that, then, there's certain prerequisites that you need to obtain in order to even get a look in. So you've got to do your sports level 1, level 2, level 3. You got to be accredited through the Australian Physiotherapy Association. So you need to understand, as Dan said, the direction, what and where you want to go, but also probably the logistics of that direction, that journey, and what kind of courses do you need to do that, that may have prerequisites and that sort of thing for further progressions in that course. But as we all know, we all come out fresh out of uni or fresh out of our training, and then you're like, well, at the moment, I'm a very much a generalist, most people, and you're not sure exactly what sort of path you want to go down. And that was my case, for example. So I thought at the start that I wanted to be a sports physio and work with professional teams. And then I soon realized, maybe 12 to 18 months later, that, well, this requires, the demands of that was all right, several weeknights a week, you got to give up. You got to give up your own sport. You got to then go away with the team on the weekends. You get paid shit all, and you need to do X amount of courses to get you into the next course, which only has a certain amount of intakes per year. So logistically, it will take fucking 5 years and all this extra work to even get to that position. So I think that combining your interests as well as working out something that's going to obviously be fulfilling for you, and then also rather than being idealistic, realistic about the direction in which you want to take, and then as Dan said, you want to sort of work towards that option B and that destination, and make sure you just try and stick the same trajectory and not be too fucking sporadic in your choices, just like investing crypto, isn't that right? Stick to your guns and then fucking just ride that.
There's a lot of parallels like of program design, really. It's the same way. It's like, where do you want to go? Where are you currently? What's the methods to get there? And then trying to, concurrently progress and make sure that they're all aligned with each other and all complement each other. Like, you can still do external stuff. It's not to say, like for PTs, for example, it's still good to know nutrition, but like do 1 or 2 things on it. Don't do like, 5 courses here, 5 courses there. Like, go all in on one thing. Have a good general knowledge of everything, but then specialize in one thing or 2 things.
Yeah.
At a time.
It's a good point as well. And now we have access to people in a way that makes life so easy. So before, when I was studying 10 years ago, we had no Facebook, we had no Instagram. Reaching out was quite hard. So, the biggest thing that I would kind of even tell my guys is even go out there and actually experiencing. So when I did nursing, I never really focused on what nursing was about. And I started doing aged care, and I'm like, this is not what I envisioned to do. I can't
Life to be like.
Yeah, and I didn't kind of have that understanding. I thought, yeah, cool, I want to work in the hospital and whatever. And then when I actually started the process where I had to do aged care first and this, and by the time I got to the hospital, it was another 4 years, I've lost interest. 2 months, I quit. So all that study that I'd done,
Oh, we're losing him.
Dropping out.
Dropped out, man.
You're on some fire there,
I
bro.
really kind of did proper research. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're back on.
He's back. And he's gone.
All right. You're not back.
All right. But yeah, like, listen, I think circling back on all of this, right? Like when we come out of our respective courses, you think you know where you want to go. And in 99% of cases, you have no idea, right? Because you lack that experiential side of stuff. So listen, I do think for a lot of new grads, there is a lot of value in dabbling your foot into multiple things in order to find out what you actually enjoy, right? And sometimes, as I've said to a lot of people, we'll go to a course, you go to a weekend seminar and you come back and you're sitting around with some mates and be like, all right, how'd you find it? And all of them was like, what a waste of time. I got nothing. Like, and I'm like, I got a huge thing out of it. And they're like, what's that? And I'm like, I got out that I never want to do that. That's not for me. And that in itself is worth a lot of money because you just saved yourself time and energy, right? And so I think like that's one of the things I recommend to a lot of like students where they're like, oh, I only go and observe people that I think that I like the way they do things. I was like, you should go observe all the people that you think you don't like, because you may find that your opinion's wrong, or you may at least you know for certain that is not something you want to do, right? Like when you're a student, you can have all the opinions in the world, but frankly, and I mean this with all due respect, you don't have a fucking clue. Like you haven't even earned the right to an opinion yet. And I got some mates that are lecturers, but again, I'm going to double this down. They generally, like, you're just mirroring their opinions. And a lot of the lecturers I've had over the years, these are great teachers, but I don't know if they were great practitioners.
Yeah, big difference, I believe. Like you're right. In life and goes the same thing. You got to dabble in a few different things to even work out you want to go and study chiro, osteo, physio, myo, and then you got to obviously trial a few different domains within your industry to realize, all right, well, I want to probably steer my attention here. And classic, human nature, Nathan, you said, you are the product of your environment. If all you have been around is your university lecturers who are lecturers and may not be clinicians or might have had 1 year in the field and decide that wasn't for them, then of course you're going to adapt to their sort of way of thinking and their perspective. So I think Mina touched on it as well. Before you even spend any money, go out and reach out and spend some time with some people, that you think you want to be like, and B, that you think you don't want to be like, or you may have this sheltered or sort of short-sighted and narrow vision of what that industry or that domain would be like.
Yeah, 100%, right? And there's another thing this is going to come off the bat of the same thing. So one of the really important things that happened in our industry a couple of years back, so we had a requirement, you had formal and informal PD, right? So formal was you had to go to courses or do things that had strict, like they had, 3 hours of XPD or 12 points or whatever it is. So 50% had to be that and 50% could be informal. You just had to be able to demonstrate that it was relevant. Now they scrapped that. Now you just have to demonstrate that everything was relevant. That was one of the best things that happened because it was the only people that were applying for that PD were courses within the industry. And then you end up with, like we've talked about before, this giant circle jerk of just the same shit with the same people and the same opinions over and over again. And you wonder why you're not developing. And you're just like, the best PD I've done has almost been exclusively out of profession, right? Like Dan's course was absolutely fantastic addition. Jordan Shellow's stuff, who is a chiro, but again, it's more strength conditioning. A lot of this stuff, I see a lot of in my industry, a lot of people just trying to learn how to do better adjustments. And most of that comes from time in the industry. Whereas what you really need to learn is how to be better at your craft, right? Like how to understand what's going on better, how to like evaluate movement better. That's the stuff that really like sets people apart rather than just being able to do the magical adjustment.
I'm going to say something controversial.
Go.
I've not done a single CPD that's been osteoarled health related since I graduated.
Oh shit.
But you also got to think, let's challenge that. Well, like, a lot of your stuff that you're doing are courses now. So you've steered away from the actual, I don't know how much hands-on work you're doing, but kind of all the stuff you studied, but majority, like we can see like the route you're taking though.
I still do. No, I mean, like I'll never do, from my trajectory, I'll never not practice because I think it's shit having a teacher who doesn't actually do the thing they're doing. Yeah. So I think that side of things, but also I love doing it. And I spent 5 years studying it. I'm still going to do it. It's just more so, it's 2 days a week rather than 5 days a week. But I think the reason I don't do it as much, like I didn't do the courses, is this doesn't interest me. It's like, here's a 2-day course on, like Nathan said, in adjustments, or 2-day course on myofascial release. I'm like, I'd rather go and learn the principles of like deeper principles of physiology, anatomy, biomechanics, and then it's like that stuff you can kind of work it out because it's like you're learning a method versus learning the principle, which I always think learning the principle allows you to express those methods. And it's like dry needling and cupping. Like there's techniques to it. Ben might hate me for this. I think like there's techniques to it to make it more efficient. But it's like if you know the anatomy and you know what you're trying to do and you have the clinical thinking and reasoning for it, like the actual needling cupping is pretty easy. It's just you just need to know what you're doing.
Well,
like there's a reason why Ben, if you go see Ben for cupping versus see a Chinese massage in the plaza, it's like they're both doing the same shit. Why is it Ben got awesome results and she didn't? It's like the cupping's not hard. It's just the rationale of why Ben did what he did.
Yeah, it's
did
right.
English, sorry, not my strong point.
No, I think
CPD.
A couple of big points there. This is I apply the same knowledge to different podcasts and people I listen to. It's like you're going to the source of the information, which is the anatomy, physiology, biomechanics, and you're getting a good understanding of the fundamentals that will then allow you to obviously work certain things out, problem solve for certain problems, and then work out how to then intervene in a particular way that may be timely. It may be the same thing that someone else does, but because you've arrived at this solution through your problem solving skills, because you have great fundamentals in your knowledge and understanding of the human body, you can then work out what practitioner at what time, what type of treatment at what time, what type of programming will work for you, even though it might be dressed up as something similar to what they've had in the past. But because you're piecing together all these moving parts and you're stringing it all together, and that's where, as you said, you might get the different outcome. But from the outside looking in, it may look very similar to what the person has had before or has experienced or has been told to do before. So I believe that when you go get your information from the source and where all the information comes from, which is understanding of the human body, then you can work out the rest. And the second point you touched on there is this skill development and skill acquisition. Cupping, you can only get so good at. Needling, you can only get so good at. Designing a program, you can only get so good at. It's all skill development and skill acquisition. And depending on, you know, rate of learning and a lot of other variables, it will depend on how good you get at that skill in what amount of time. But the real secret, I believe, and as you said, Dan, that you haven't done a PD course within your own industry, is actually working out how your industry and your set of skills ties into musculoskeletal management and nervous system management and whatever else, like lymphatic stuff. So I think that, yeah, two bang on points: source of information, and, you know, a skill's a skill. You can only get so good at a skill.
Yeah. And like, I'd circle back off. I don't mean to try and jump in, but I'm coming in anyway. But I'd say that you, like, all the PD you've done is from your industry. It's just most of the people are ignoring it, right? Like,
Yeah,
everything I've done, I think the like programming, strength conditioning stuff is the most important stuff for my industry, not the like 50 people on the weekend that joined a live link with a couple of guys in Europe to learn how to get more spiritual and they're adjusting, right? Like, I would literally rather fucking cut myself than deal with it. Like, don't get me wrong, like, and I mean that.
You need
like,
Jesus, bro.
I know I jest here, but like,
Nah, he's too far gone.
but just then, like, don't get me wrong, I could go to that and I'd have a great time because I love hanging out with crew. But we need to take away that, like, the bullshit from stuff, right? Like, if people need to go to a weekend course to learn a couple of new skills and to get reminded that they do a good job, and hey, here's a better way to set your body up so you don't bash your body up so much when you're doing this work, no problem. As long as we're honest about that's what's going on. But when you look at it, it's just like, you're like, people are paying fucking top dollar for somebody to jump on Zoom and magically show them how to get some kind of innate connection. I'm just like, this is why people think what we do is slap fish around above people and sing a rain dance, right? Like, I just I ain't got no time for that.
So you're saying that I shouldn't get Dan to give us a 2-day course?
Oh, but listen, Dan's an osteo, mate. It's an entirely different thing.
No,
Because that Jesus, Nate, mate, you're stitching up the business. I think the key point though is like I always say this in program design. It's like there's nothing wrong with learning methods and learning skills, but it's like you need to know principles before you learn methods. And all people like try and do it backwards. So you finish their Cert 3-4, and then they'll go do a course on undulating periodization versus linear. It's like you don't need to know different types of periodization when you don't understand why the periodization works. Like realistically, you can do whatever programming type you like, as long as there's progressive overload, intensity parameters are followed, and technique is executed the way you think it's meant to be executed, then you can literally choose whatever you want. Like, the world is your oyster. So it's like, why are we arguing over what oyster you choose versus like the actual application part? So I just think it's more the learning sequence. Like, there's nothing wrong with going, like they said, to go do a needling course if you want to learn how to be more efficient at needling. But it's like, as long as you understand why you're using it.
Yeah, go to a needling course to be certified and ensured that if you fuck someone up, that you're going to be covered.
That too.
Hell.
I have done my needling and cupping. Just disclaimer.
I think that, in uni though. I think that the important thing to throw in here is, now this is for people who are A, running courses, and B, people looking for courses and looking, at the benefit cost ratio. And if you are paying like an absurd amount of money for a course that can only get you X amount of return in your day-to-day work or your profession, I believe that needs to be taken into consideration as well. Because, for example, I went and did this $2,000 fucking 3-day Pilates course when I was working for someone else, and sure, I went and taught Pilates for the next 18 months, and the return on investment would have came back. But I'm like, $2,000.
You do have a Pilates body, mate. You have a body that was designed by Pilates.
At the moment, she's fragile. I was up this morning massaging my lower back because I needed a treatment too, Dan, today. But I was just like, fuck, I've let the boys down too many times with this HPI stuff, so I had to take one for the team. And so
choose whether to let 3 down or 1 down. Just kidding.
But I think that needs to be taken into consideration is how much you're spending, what you're going to get out of it, the return on your investment. And then, if you are the people running the courses, I think you need to work out what's fair and reasonable without trying to be too fucking salesy to these like new grads that come out, this fresh meat, they're ready to jump at anything. So I think you need to consider what things cost and what your potential return may be. Like how much better, as you said, Nath, and how much more money and how much more effective will you be in your practice if you learn how to do one new adjustment versus learning, like Dan said, some strength and conditioning principles and learning how to add an extra service to your business or an extra skill set to your current skill set that could add X amount of quality of life improvement to the client and, that sort of thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Understand how to connect the dots better.
Yeah, exactly right. And like also at the same time, have the mindset that you don't necessarily need more interventions, right? Like there is a line where you have enough interventions, especially like we're manual therapy heavy here. There's a line where you don't necessarily need to focus on more in-house. You need the out-house type stuff, right? Because you can keep adding skills and adding skills and adding things and adding this and adding that. And eventually, you're going to have to spend so long with a client, it is like just not cost effective for you and you're already getting great results without having to do it. And two, becomes a tendency for once people learn new stuff to try and do friggin' everything. And a lot of the time that is too much input for a system. Like there are some people that cannot handle that level of input, right? And I love shiny things, right? Like you're like, all right, let's try it. Let's give it a whirl. But I almost feel now is like if I get something new, I have to get rid of something else. And it has to be those
time poor. Like you got X amount of time in your session. As you said, you can't do everything. And I'm a testament to that. I was trying to learn everything. And then my pursuit was on adjustments and cervical adjustments and that sort of thing. And then I'm like, fuck, what do I need to do this for? So I got great chiropractors around me. I got great osteos around me. I said, I don't need to go and spend X amount more time training and mentoring just to do something poorly. Whereas I know good people who do it much better. And as we said, rate of learning, skill development, it take me X amount of fucking days and years to get that good at it when it ends up being negligible at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I'd jump around this as well, just as we start to wind out on future education as well, in terms of like future tertiary education. Like I'm very open to my intentions to go back shortly and do the masters in S&C because I believe it's going to add further to my like repertoire, and I do think it's something I'm interested in. But I have considered going the other way and eventually doing medicine just to add it in. And I have to admit, when I have to have a hard look at it, it is at least another 5 years of my life at full-time uni. It's not going to really add anything to my business, right? Like if we have to be business people, if I want to do it because I want to go learn it, I want to enjoy it, that's on me, right? That's on me. Then I'll have to set my business up and go elsewhere. But if I'm doing it because I want to be able to, I think it's another addition to my business skill, I'm lying to myself, right? Like I think it's 5 years to go through, or at least 4 go on postgrad where I am now, and that's assuming you get enough high enough score on the bloody whatever it is.
You start again. Your business is backwards 5 years.
And when you graduate, you've still got to go spend your years in the hospital system. You then have to go for your GP thing to be able to do private practice. Like probably talking another 8-9 years just to get and like for the whole theory of trying to give people an option that is basically medication surgery based and get a better access to clientele. You're really not like, again, not everything is about business.
I would just do functional medicine.
Fucking time, bro, like years. Like you don't get those years back ever.
And like for me, it's one of those things that I would consider if I was going towards semi-retirement, was where you're like, just going to keep the brain rolling. Why not learn some fun new shit?
Bro, you're going to be trading in 2 years, don't lie.
Right.
But touching on that,
I'm doing something similar to you though, Nath. Like I'm thinking the same thing in terms of going down the functional medicine route, which will take at least 5, 10 realistically to be good at it, 5 just to get the baseline, but like sort of personal interest, but also I feel like it's all integrated. Like traditional functional medicine is literally traditional osteopathy. If you look back in the day at old mate AT still in the 1800s, it's all the same thing. It's just it will help the business, help my clients get better results, but also I'm genuinely interested in it because I think there's a lot of gaps.
Yeah. And that's the line, right? Like that is, at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to admit you're keen on it. And if you're keen on it, I'm on board. But if you have any doubts or you're thinking it's going to, if you think the only thing it will do is it'll improve your business and it's going to take you 5 to 10 years, think about all the missed opportunity, right?
Fucking hell, that's like time, years wasted. Like 2 points there. Hey, I think, Nate, chiropractic plus your skill set and strength and conditioning, and then further a master's in strength and conditioning. That's like, to me, that's the GOAT physical therapist right there. So that's just a compliments to you, bro. And secondly, you can do informal education in those areas of interest. And thirdly, you can, if you run a business, you can then hire someone who has the training in tertiary education under their belts, who can just fulfill that role that you need. And now your service offers that now your business offers that service without you having to go and spend an extra 10 years to even get good at that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, you got to always, like, classic, I've had, Amir said to me, he goes, what are you willing to sacrifice to get to where you want to be, whether that be time, money, relationships, whatever it may be. So I think that needs to be highly considered, A, when choosing a course to do, and B, when choosing, university and that sort of thing.
Yeah, 100%. Well, unless anybody has anything else they want to add on this delicious topic, it may be time to wind this bad boy up. I'm not even
most CPD, most good CPD doesn't actually give you CPD.
Yeah,
that's the final point.
That is the truth.
Unfortunately.
And now, I don't know if this is probably one thing I should mention for our previous in our profession. People who wanted the points had to pay the government agency to get the accreditation for the points.
Of course, it's all tied together, bro.
Yeah. So luckily we've had this change now where you just have to prove that it was worthwhile, which I think if you touch, like, that's the beauty of strength and conditioning working for her. Like, the moment I do a CPD on it, I know it's easily provable as formal accreditation. So yeah, when you have that, you're right.
That's the issue. That's like, I think osteo chiro could get my course, but physio can't because they're APA, EP is ESSA, Myo. I'm not sure about yours, Mina, but yeah, so it's a bit of a cock block in terms of education sometimes, but I guess
100%.
Also a good thing, because I think the reason I haven't made my course accredited is because, I mean, A, like you said, it's a hassle. B, you got to pay the FA or pay ESSA or pay APA. But then also it's like a lot of people just do it because they're trying to get points versus genuinely wants to do it. I kind of like that barrier to entry. It's almost like private health, like you said, Nate, like take the private health away and see who actually wants to see you versus who's just seeing you because it's convenient.
I was going to ask you that. You read my mind if your courses were accredited, because when I ran mine all those years ago, there was a common question that popped up. It was like, all right, will this contribute to CPD points? Like, how do you register your course to make sure that, you jump through all the hoops to get it regulated and actually attributing to the official CPD of like the APA or something like that. So
it's definitely worth it if you want to make a course for the masses, but if you want to keep it like niche and personalized, then yeah, there's not really an issue. I don't think.
So I actually inquired. Look, I don't know how it is with ARPRA, but with our associations. So if you do anything that's in relation to your workplace, that can still count as CPE for us. We just have to submit it through on our association platforms. So, for example, let's say all the stuff that I do with for example, all the podcasts, like things I do with my business coach that's in relation to massage and business, I can put on there. Any certifications that you do, any one-day courses that you do, even if you do your own revision, that's still counted as CPE for us. So, so I don't know how it works with you guys, but with us, that's how the cookie crumbles.
So not the two-day course will cover all your CPD then, Rita.
Yeah.
Mate, all these podcasts, you're well and truly covered.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm going to finish on this note then, right? Like, your goal should never be to just do the minimum.
No, of course not.
Yeah, like if you're a person who's just always trying to scrape by the minimum, then you're going to get minimal results, and that's just the facts, right? So I think like people laugh, but I think at years, like I had to have 25 hours of CPD, and I think I averaged in the 400 to 500 hours. I worked it all out. So go hard, but don't do stupid shit, and we're all going to get along famously.
Do your due diligence, and if you need to ask any of us boys about, should you consider doing something? Is it worth your time? Is it worth your money? Do it. I think that there's a huge benefit in choosing someone informally to go mentor with. So I think we'll leave it on that note. I'm happy to wrap it up, guys. Again, we're going to start really pumping these out because I finally got my shit together. If you enjoyed listening, if you think that you got a friend who needs to hear this message, do your service to us, the HBI boys, and just share it on your social media. I don't know, text it to someone, share it to someone through Facebook. Anywhere that you can share it is perfect. Any extra marketing for us is fantastic. And guys, if you need any information answered, just hit us up. Thanks, guys.
Gents, pleasure as always.
Thanks, legends.